The Springboks have done it. They've gone back-to-back for the first time, winning the Rugby Championship this year. 29 points to 27. The Springboks just get over Argentina. Not the first half we were looking for from the Springboks. Maybe not even the finish to the game we were looking from the Springboks. But the name South Africa will be etched on that Rugby Championship trophy. Let me know what you guys thought of the game down in the comments. If you haven't, leave this video a like. And as always, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers. The Rugby Championship is done. It's been... there's been a lot of ups, there's been a lot of downs. It's been quite a testing Rugby Championship, but I think Rassie, and the Springboks have gotten exactly what they wanted out of this Rugby Championship. We've learned so much since that first game against Australia, where we were 22 points up, and then we ended up losing that game against Australia, just losing out at Eden Park, that absolute demolition derby in Wellington, putting the Pumas to the sword last week in Durban, and then to end it off here, not here, but at Twickenham in England, beating Argentina 29 points to 27. Maybe not our best, most consistent performance that we've seen from the Springboks, but as they say, there's no pictures on a scorecard. The South African name will be on that trophy, and I think it is well deserved. I think the best team has come out on top. Obviously, New Zealand getting over Australia this morning in what was also quite a tight game, a lot of rain. Australia are one of those teams that just seem like at the moment they just don't go away. They keep fighting, and I mean the Springboks saw that being 22 points down, managing to fight back past the Springboks and beat them. I think Australia are probably one of the teams to look out for at the 2027 Rugby World Cup. They may be the dark horse in that 2027 Rugby World Cup. New Zealand, although the Springboks only finished 1 point ahead of them on the Rugby Championship table, I do think there's more questions than answers around the All Blacks at the moment. A lot of questions were answered for the Springboks over this Rugby Championship. The Pumas are always going to be that dangerous team that can beat you on any day. We saw it now, 29 points to 27. It looked very comfortable for the Springboks. 29, I think it was 29-13 at a point, and Argentina just have that never say die attitude and almost got themselves back into that. Well, they did get themselves back into that game. A couple more minutes and they would have been there. If that penalty went over, they would have won. They would have won if that penalty didn't hit the pole there at the end. But I want to go through this game. I want to give you my instant reaction, my thoughts. Thank you for riding with me for this Rugby Championship. We're going to be a lot more consistent over the next couple of months and really build into those Autumn Nations fixtures. A couple of massive test matches there for the Springboks against France, against Ireland, Japan, Italy, and Wales to end off the year. Overall, definitely not our best performance today. I think we can say that quite frankly. I think there were probably 20 to 30 minutes where the Springboks really dominated, maybe 5 minutes before halftime and then kind of 20 minutes after halftime. But we weren't as fluid as we were last week, and I think we're a little bit spoiled as Springbok supporters at the moment because we beat the Pumas so emphatically in Durban last week, 67 points to 30, and we kind of expect the same results week in and week out from Wellington to Durban and now into London. And it just wasn't the case today. I mean, Argentina really came out of the gates extremely strong. Their attacking and their defensive game was so good in that first half. They kept the ball alive. They defended like absolute madmen. I mean, the Springboks only got over for that first try right before halftime. So they had defended and defended and defended. And I actually do think, if I haven't checked the stats, but I would be very, very surprised if the Springboks had more possession than Argentina in that first half. It was all Argentina. I mean, they were knocking Eben Etzebeth back, and you could kind of see the frustration on his face, gave away a silly penalty. Kane Moody sort of getting that yellow card in the first 5 minutes definitely didn't help that. I did think Kane Moody did step back up, and his defense is definitely getting a whole lot better. He's learning to read that 13 channel a little bit better, and I think Kane Moody's definitely put his hand up as one of those players to watch out for over the next couple of months and towards that 2027 Rugby World Cup. Where the Springboks won the game today, and there's absolutely no debate on it, was the scrum. I mean, we were one man down with Kane and Moody off, and the Springboks opted to rather have Kobus Reinach move into wing and then shift the backline up a bit so that we had cover in the backline, maybe showing you how dangerous that Argentinian backline is. For the Springboks to go down to 7 men in the scrum, which is our main weapon, having Pieter-Steph du Toit kind of filling as the scrum off there kind of shows the danger that backline of Argentina possesses. But even with 7 men, tight heads, penalties, absolute dominance at the scrum. And I think that might be the reason that we sort of were able to stay in the game in that first half. If our scrum wasn't performing and Argentina could have just kept getting the ball cleanly out of that scrum, we would have been under a lot of pressure. The Argentinians would have kept the ball in play a whole lot more, and they probably would have had a couple more points on the board going into halftime, which changes the complexion of the game completely. So our scrum was definitely our saving grace in this game. And I mean, you look at a guy like Oxencho who came back. He was meant to play last week in Durban, picked up a niggle. He comes back, him and Thomas du Toit and Malcolm Marx, outstanding in the scrum. You bring on Jan-Hendrik Wessels and Volkolo and Bongi Mbanambe, and they kind of leave off. They kind of start where the first front row kind of left off. So it kind of shows how much depth we have in that front row, and it's a serious weapon. I mean, to scrum Argentina, who have a decent scrum, with 7 men backwards, getting penalty after penalty after penalty. If our scrum didn't perform today, I'm convinced we probably would have lost this game. So I think that front row, the locks, can take huge pride in the performance at set piece time. Even the lineouts. I mean, Eben Etzebeth was being quite a menace at lineout time, trying to steal some balls. Ruan Nokia was as vital as he has been in the whole rugby championship, and he seems to constantly give us those 7, 8 out of 10 performances that we're looking for, that consistency that we're looking for in a Springbok player. Sia and Jasper Visser and Pieter-Steph were phenomenal once again. Pieter-Steph du Toit has just sort of taken it to a new level over the past couple of weeks. He's always been the Springboks' best player, one of the Springboks' best players, but he just seems to keep pushing that level up and up and up, and it's phenomenal to watch. You look at the back line, Sasha, as dangerous as ever, maybe didn't have as much fluidity in the back line than we did last week, and I think it was a slight tweak in the game plan. We wanted to be a little bit more direct this week against Argentina, and you can kind of see where we started being direct, we found a lot of points on offer. There were a lot of opportunities that started to open up with the forwards sort of bashing up in front, and then the gap sort of started to open up quite wide. But that first half, we gave way too many penalties away. Sasha, again, at his best with ball in hand. Argentina really wanted to push the pace in that first half, and they did. They were 13-3 up, and they started like a house on fire. I think where the game really started to turn for the 35th to the 60th minute was that try that Kobus Reinach ended up scoring just before halftime, where again, a 7, or I think it was an 8-man scrum, we sort of scrum, got so much dominance, we didn't get the penalty. Reinach the ball spat out, Reinach picked it up and dotted it over. He ended up winning man of the match, 2 tries, absolutely phenomenal performance by Kobus Reinach, and he kind of looked up for it. He really looked up for it today. So again, looking at that 9 and 10 combination, it's so difficult to pick who is the first choice 9, who is the first choice 10, because I think coming into the Rugby Championship, Grant Williams was number 1. Kobus Reinach just puts in a performance like that. He's connecting really well with Sasha Feinberg and Ngumazulu. It's difficult. I wouldn't want to be in Rassie's shoes. It's a blessing, but it is going to be difficult to try and pick the best 23 for the Springboks because the depth is just insane at the moment. It's a 40-50 man squad. It's really exciting if you're a Springbok fan. So we go 13-10 into halftime, and I'm sure Rassie Erasmus had some foul words to say to the boys at halftime, but they came out, and like I said, you have to give, first of all, credit to Argentina for their ability to keep ball in hand, their ability to keep the Springboks out. But then when the Springboks came out in that second half, they were a lot more clinical, they were a lot more direct. And all of that defensive efforts that Argentina did so well in the first half kind of started to pay dividends for the Springboks in that second half. The Springboks go 29 points to 13 up. Malcolm Marx gets over for 2 tries, also had a phenomenal game. It looked like Malcolm Marx was back to his best. Not only at line-out time, not only at scrum time, but in loose play, stealing balls, making big hits. The boys were up for it today. You have to give credit to Argentina because they stuck in there. And then I think we kind of went to sleep a little bit in the last 20 minutes. Chesin, again, back-to-back weeks, makes an outrageous mistake, passing that ball into no man's land, and Argentina get a quick try and they're back in the game. It's suddenly 29 points to 20. Argentina get that penalty. If that goes over and doesn't hit the post, the Springboks are in trouble, and then they score that late try, making it 29 points to 27. But like I said at the beginning of the video, there are no pictures on a scorecard. The Springboks, after that Australia lost in the first game of the Rugby Championship, I think it was easier Springbok supporters to kind of be a little bit frustrated with that, especially being 22 points up in that game. We're playing this Tony ball. It's looking really well, but we ended up running ourselves off of our feet. We bounced back against Australia. We then go away to New Zealand, and I think what we mustn't forget, and the reason we have never gone back to back in the Rugby Championship, is because we have to go play New Zealand away twice, which is why they always win that Rugby Championship. We retain the Freedom Cup, we retain the Rugby Championship by absolutely hammering them in Wellington. I think you can argue that the Springboks weren't at their best at Eden Park, and I think if we were closer to our best, we probably could have knocked over the All Blacks, but we can't have these could have, would have, should haves. We have to go and deliver. Then we blew Argentina away in that game at Durban, and then we just hung on in this game in London, 29 points to 27. So while it is a relief, I think the standard for the Springboks is so high at the moment that us as fans might not be too pleased with that performance, but I think there are a lot of highlights coming out of that game. I do think the Springboks played 7 to 7.5 out of 10, 70 to 75% their best rugby. Some of the bounces weren't going their way. We didn't win as many balls in the air as we did last week in Durban to kind of keep the play going. So even though they were up against it, they still found a way to win, and that's what makes a really, really good team. They're going to have a rest now. They're probably going to have a lacquer jaw tonight. And then it's into that November tour, which is absolutely massive in terms of world rankings. The World Cup draw is on the 3rd of December. So we want to be as high in the World Cup in the world rankings as possible. Coming up against France and Ireland away from home is no easy feat. Probably two of our hardest games of the year coming up. The hardest one probably being against the All Blacks at Eden Park, and then France and Ireland are definitely up there. So still a lot to work on. There's going to be lots of content coming this week. Let me know what you guys thought of the game, of the Rugby Championship, of being champions back to back. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, leave this video a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.